Canon has just announced 3 new cameras. In this video, I'll be taking a first look, giving my impressions on the T7i, the 77D, and the EOS M6. Now these are just my opinions and my feelings on the subject. They're not based on having used the devices. So with that kind of disclaimer going forward, I hope you really enjoy this video. I really hope that you can appreciate the fact that I've spent like 6 hours looking into this just because I'm incredibly curious as a potential buyer myself. So leave a like for the effort, if nothing else. I'm just going to read you the specs because they're the same on at least the T7i and the 77D. 45 all cross type autofocus points. That's new for a Rebel. The most a Rebel ever had before was 9, so that's kind of a really big deal. Both cameras have, or all 3 cameras rather, have dual pixel autofocus, which is fantastic. Canon's dual pixel is something that I really want to work with a lot more because arguably it's the best, especially for like video. Their face detection is killer. I'm using an Alpha 6300 right here, and I think it's really good. The people that have used the EOS M5, that have used C100 Mark II with it, that have used the 1DC with it, all have only had really good things to say about dual pixel autofocus. So I'm really excited that is a feature that's coming into some of these lower end cameras, if you will. I really think that Canon needed to do this because they didn't put 4K in any of these cameras. They did, however, put 1080p 60. That, I think, is a pretty good compromise because that's also a fairly new addition to the lineup of features that Canon DSLRs and now mirrorless are able to offer. All 3 cameras have a 24.2 megapixel sensor, APS-C size sensor in them. The big deal, I feel like, with these cameras is the fact that all 3 of them have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and NFC. So more and more people are taking images with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, transferring them to their phone, and then posting them to social media. I think Canon did a great job with this. The T7i and the 77D both have the tilty flippy touchscreens. I think those are fantastic. I'm really excited about those. They have ISO capacity up to 25,600 natively, which is much more than what the 80D can do. The 80D can get up to 16,000 ISO, which is fantastic and way more than most people need for most situations. But expanded capacity is great, especially expanded native capacity. So all 3 of these cameras have digital stabilization, which means that the sensor is going to take a cropped readout during recording video. Now that digital stabilization is 5-axis. So it is hypothetically, in terms of axes, on par with Sony's in-body image stabilization. It's huge that they're doing it. They've needed to do it. I think that's a really exciting feature. That's something that makes me want to go out and buy one of those for shooting on a regular daily basis. I want that extra step of stabilization when I'm using a prime or a lens that doesn't have stabilization built in. So I think the fact that Canon is doing that, even though it's digital, is a huge deal. Although I think that actual mechanical stabilization is much preferable to digital. Both the 77D and the T7i have HDR movie mode and time-lapse built in. So HDR movie mode will allow you to get depth of color, if you will, dynamic range on par with what you can get out of, for example, a Sony that is shooting a logarithmic profile. Now you don't put that color into it like you do with a logarithmic profile. It's baked in, if you will, and that presents some problems if you need to tweak it in post. But the color science that Canon has is fantastic, and so I really trust that it's going to be really good. So both the T7i and the 77D have high speed continuous shooting at 6 frames per second or 4.5 in live view mode with continuous autofocus. The EOS M6 is really cool because it does 9 frames per second, and I believe that it can shoot continuously for just over 4 seconds, because that's way more than what you need for most applications. So if you have a child who plays basketball, for example, you're inside, they're playing, someone shooting a hoop doesn't take 4 seconds to shoot that hoop. You only need probably really only 1.5 seconds worth of shooting, so you have plenty of extra space on both ends of that to capture the lead up and the crescendo and the falling action, if you will, to use a musical and a literary term. I'm really excited about the 77D in particular. It is unique from the T7i in a number of areas. It has a much better metering system than the T7i. It has the same metering system as the 80D, which is fantastic. The 77D also has back button focusing and a control dial on the back for things like aperture. So that's a feature that's included in a lot of Canon's higher end cameras like the 80D and above. It also has a top LCD screen, which I don't think is particularly useful. Neither the 77D nor the T7i nor the EOS M6 recorded in Canon's all-I compression. What that means is that it is an IPB compression, which is a more compressed file, so you can do less to it in post-processing if you need to. I don't find this as big of a deal as a lot of people seem to, and that's quite simply because even when you take as much as you can out of the image in order to put some back in post, in a Canon camera, you can't play with it too much before it starts to look really weird. So really unreal in potentially a bad way. So having all that information in the image when you take it out of the camera, having it all baked in, I think is just fine because Canon is really accurate with their images that they capture and the color that they capture and the contrast in camera. The EOS M6 has a tilty screen as opposed to a tilty flippy screen like the T7i and the 77D, such that when you choose to move it, it can tilt down 45 degrees or up 180, so you can tilt it back up and over the camera. This is a really great feature that I think is putting the M6 in a position to go after cameras like the Sony RX100s. I don't think that it's at a reasonable price point to be doing that, but I really don't think that the price point means that you're getting as much value out of that camera as you should be, especially in comparison to the Sony RX100 series. So here's kind of the big idea that I've had when I've been looking at all of this information. It really seems to me like what Canon did was make the 80D, which is a fantastic camera, and take the sensor and all of the stuff about the sensor and put it into the EOS M5. From there, it has now put that exact same thing into the 77D, the T7i, and the EOS M6 with progressive limitations. So from the 80D to the 77D, what you're mostly losing is a mic jack. You're actually gaining native ISO ability between those two, which is a little confusing, but it is a newer camera. From the 77D to the T7i, you're losing back button focusing and a dial on the back. And between the T7i and the EOS M6, you're actually gaining frame rate, which is fantastic. You're losing a viewfinder. You're losing weight. You're losing the screen's capacity to flip as well as tilt. And you're also losing that flip screen's ability to be used with touch, so it's not a touch screen. These feature differences are so minute, only someone steeped in the exact value added of these features would be able to tell a difference. And it seems like Canon's being really lazy with that, and that really bothers me because I feel like I expect so much more out of Canon. I love the images that their cameras create. I think that their glass is fantastic. But already I've bought my first Sigma lens, and all the lenses that I'm wanting to buy, save one, are Sigma lenses. So they're losing me on the lens market. By doing something like this, I have EF lenses, but do I want to continue to invest in EF lenses if I don't believe in the camera bodies that they're making? So am I just gonna put that money into Sony instead because I love the images, both stills and video, that I'm able to get out of my Sony? Right now I'm gonna have to say probably, because I don't think that Canon is really looking after consumers that have been in their product line for any duration of time. So I'm really having a hard time finding what value Canon is adding with these new camera bodies. And I'm really interested in trying them out to find that out in particular, because I don't think that it's very substantial. I'd really love to hear what you think about it, because I'm a disillusioned Canon shooter right now. As much as I might end up going for something like the 77D because of price point and what my particular needs are, at the very least within this studio space, I'm not going to be happy about it. So leave a comment below. Let's start a conversation, you and I, about the pros and the cons of where Canon's going with the products that they're releasing, and what you think about the ones that they have already released as of recording this yesterday. So I've kind of been rambling on and on. If you've made it through this far, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate all the people that have been watching my videos lately and have been subscribing in particular, so I would really appreciate it if you would do that as well. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I'll see you in the next one.